Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us here on SABC News. President Cyril Ramaphosa says that it is the duty of every South African to fulfill the rights enshrined in the Constitution to create a non-racial society. Former President Nelson Mandela signed the Constitution 25 years ago, delivering his Human Rights Day message to the nation. Ramaphosa said as the country entered the phase of recovery from the coronavirus pandemic, it must strive to forge ahead, guided by the rights enshrined in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Now let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Daryl Swanepoel, the Chief Executive Officer at Inclusive Society Institute. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Thanks so much for availing yourself to SABC News.
Good afternoon, Flo. Good to be with you.
Is social cohesion something which is, elusive in our country? We talk about it, yes, we often do talk about it, but will we ever see it really in our lifetimes?
Well, let me put it to you this way. I think that we started off 26 years ago, we started off very well under President Mandela, and there was a sense of the nation coming together. But I must be quite frank with you, and that is that of late, that cohesiveness seems to be slipping somewhat. It's waning. And I think we need to start with the narrative in the country. It is too biting, it is too aggressive, it is too accusatory. And if we're wanting to bring the nation together, we need to, as leadership, political leadership, civil society, we need to start being thoughtful in the way that we approach the topic.
Yeah, you talk about the fact that, during Mandela's... Sorry, so let me just come in.
Progress. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I think that there's a huge reserve amongst the general population that really want to make this work.
Let me come in,
but
please.
The continual narrative in the country, I think, is chipping away at that good.
Yeah, you talk about the fact that, it seemed like we were getting somewhere during the presidency of Nelson Mandela. But then one must look at the fact of maybe that was, in fact, some sort of a false unity where there was this big wound and a Band-Aid was put on it. And now the reality of the situation and the reality that racism still actually exists it has become quite clear. So perhaps it's incorrect to raise the fact that things were better during the time of Mandela, when right now things are more clear than ever that social cohesion is really a struggle.
I think it is closely linked to the economic question. Under the Mandela and even Mbeki era, there was a relatively high economic growth. And when there's good economic growth, then you start becoming more inclusive in the job place, you become more inclusive in wealth, and you'll start chipping away at that exclusion. Now that the economy seems to be in stagnating and more difficult, then to work towards inclusiveness and social cohesion becomes more difficult. So to me, we need to, über alles, above all, we need to start working on the economy and getting the economy to grow, because once we start that growth trajectory in South Africa, you will find that there is scope for becoming more inclusive.
When you talk about the fact that when the economy is doing well, then the issue of inclusiveness becomes it becomes better in the country. When were we ever at a point where the majority black South Africans were so much a part of that economy and flourishing from that economy that we were indeed a very inclusive society? At which point in our history did that happen? Because if we look now, we look at the past, the majority black in our society have always battled, and that's why I asked the question about social cohesion and inclusiveness. I mean, if we're going to look at it in that way, we need to then be quite honest about the conversation, then shouldn't we?
Yes, I think you're honest. I think there's at two levels. On the one side, it is not something that's going to happen overnight. As I said, the economy is stagnating at the moment. We need to get that to grow. Once we can get that to grow, then we can start including more of the previously disadvantaged people in the workplace, and we can include them in the real economy. On the other hand, we must accept that this is generational. This is a generational thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. But the point that I'm making around the narrative is that we should also not use use the economic advantage that certain people have as a scapegoat, as an excuse for why the economy is not growing. We need to get some of the fundamental things right in the economy. We need to get structural reform. We need to get confidence in the economy. We need to stop corruption taking place. Then one will see the economy grow, and then one will see a greater chance of having cohesiveness.
Just to wrap it up, our conversation, unfortunately we have to go somewhere.
I must just add, that there are a number of triggers to social discohesion, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
It's more just a racial question. It's also when people feel excluded, they're not part of the processes, when people feel that that the money that they're making, that they're paying in taxations that they're paying in, or tax money is being misappropriated. All these things feed social discohesion.
Yeah, just in closing, Mr. Swanepoel, as we commemorate Human Rights Day, we obviously can't ignore how the issue of social cohesion or lack thereof directly or indirectly, in fact, impacts on human rights, and maybe it's talking to this exclusion that you're talking to. Can you talk to us about that link between the lack of social cohesion and the impact on human rights in general?
Well, I think with human rights, you have the right to property, you have the right to to participate in the economy, you have the right to freedom of speech. All these rights are obviously impacted if you are on the fringes, if you don't have the ability to put bread on the table, if you don't have the ability to say what is worrying you.
Yeah.
That's going to put you on the fringes of society, and that's going to exclude you, and that is directly going to impact human rights.
All right, Mr. Swanepoel, thanks so much for giving us your time here on SABC News. That's Daryl Swanepoel, the Chief Executive Officer of Inclusive Society Institute. Thank you.